Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi tayyibin at-tahirin. I bear witness that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah Ta'ala, the one who has no partner and no similar, the one who has no length and no width and no depth and no perimeter, the one who is not a volume and is not in a place. And how could he be in a place when he existed before time and space? He created everything except himself, including you and your actions. Nothing occurs except by his will, both good and bad, he destined to happen. He speaks without sound, letter, or language, not Arabic, Hebrew, nor Korean. He's not light, he's not a spirit, he has nothing in common with human beings. He's not in the direction of up, down, right, left, front, nor back. And whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different than that. And I bear witness that our noble, unrivaled Master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the slave of Allah, his final messenger, and the best of all of God's creations. May Allah unite us with him in paradise and grant us a drink from his basin. And may Allah increase us in patience, humility, knowledge, and comprehension, and help us to put our knowledge into practice and grant us all sincere intentions. Ameen. We're continuing in the book, Hadrami Introduction, Al-Muqaddimah Al-Hadramiyya, which is written by the Allama Bafadl Al-Hadrami, rahimahullah. We have made it to page number 5. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala to those who salammed me. We're on page 5, where the author, may Allah have mercy on him, begins the section of wudu. Today, we're just going to talk through, insha'Allah, the 6 obligations of wudu. Okay, we're going to talk about what? The 6 parts of the wudu that are required for your wudu to be valid. Okay, so the wudu has a lot of things that you do in the wudu. There's more than 6 things you do when you make your wudu, but only 6 of those things are absolutely necessary. We'll put this another way. Out of all the things you do in the wudu, there are 6 which are obligatory, and failure to do even just one of those 6 things means you did not make wudu. Okay, so unless you do all 6 of these things, you did not make wudu at all. Let's talk today, insha'Allah, about the 6 components of the wudu that are required for your wudu to be valid. The author, may Allah have mercy on him, said the obligations of wudu are 6. What does this mean? It means that the parts of the wudu that are required for your wudu to be valid, number 6, and he's going to talk about them. And he's going to talk about them one at a time. Number 1, it says the first is the intention. So the first obligatory aspect of wudu is that the person must have a valid intention. What are some examples of a valid intention? He says, the intention of lifting one's ritual impurity. So one example of a valid intention is if, when you go to make wudu, your intention is to lift hadath, to lift ritual impurity. Okay, this is a valid intention. It says, or the purification for salah. Another valid intention is that when you go to make your wudu, you intend that you want to enter a state of purity for the sake of salat. Okay, please note that if the only thing you're intending is simply purity or simply purification, that in and of itself is not a valid intention, because purification by itself can simply refer to cleanliness. Okay, it's possible that you might be putting water on your face just, to make your face clean. not for any religious reason, that you're not doing it for the sake of worship. Okay, that you're not washing your face as an act of worship. Okay, so if you want to intend purification, make sure it's in your heart that you're intending purification for the sake of salat, or for the sake of some other thing that requires purification, like touching the mushaf or making tawaf around the Kaaba, for example. Okay, these are two intentions that are valid. Then he says, or something like that, which means these two are not the only acceptable intentions. You can intend, for example, obligatory wudu. This is also a valid intention. Or you can intend permissibility of salat. This is a valid intention. Okay, so there's multiple intentions that are valid for your wudu. Just make sure you intend one of them. Then he says, may Allah have mercy on him, at the time of washing one's face. So in the Shafi'i school, there's a particular time, a moment, when the wudu must be present in the heart. And when is that moment? When you first begin washing your face. When you first begin washing what? Your face. We're not talking about when you're washing your hands or when you're rinsing out your mouth or your nose. We mean when you first start washing your face, at that moment, the intention has to be in your heart at that moment. Okay, now this doesn't mean that you have to time it perfectly so that you think the right thought at the very moment the water touches your face. It doesn't have to be like that. You can think what your intention is before you wash your face, and then just hold the intention in your heart, like keep it in the front of your mind until you wash your face. That way the intention is there at the front of your mind at the moment the water first touches your face. Okay, that is what's required for your wudu. If you make the intention late, okay, say you wash part of your face and then you made the intention. Then say you wash the top half of your face and then you made the intention and wash the bottom half of your face, for example. In this case, your wudu did not actually start until you made the intention. So it means that the bottom half of your face got washed as part of a valid wudu, and the top half of your face was not washed as part of a valid wudu. It means you have to go back and repeat washing whatever you washed before you made the intention. Insha'Allah, that's clear. So step number one is what? A valid intention. And that valid intention must be present in the heart when? The moment the water first touches the face, when you begin washing your face. He says, may Allah have mercy on him, for the one who suffers incontinence. Now, my translation just says incontinence or similar, but the Arabic text says incontinence of urine or similar. So you should add the words of urine. Of urine. Because what he's talking about here is someone who has incontinence of urine, meaning that he drips or she drips. Okay, like a drop of urine will come out and he's powerless to stop it from coming out. Okay, this is called incontinence. And once a person's incontinence reaches the point where it's not possible for him to perform a salat without a drop of urine coming out, then this person is what we call da'im al-hadath. This person is someone who is perpetually breaking wudu. Okay, this is what we're talking about here. When he says incontinence of urine, we mean someone whose urine is coming out so regularly that he can't keep a wudu long enough to make a salat. Okay, this is called incontinence of urine. And it says, or similar, because urine is not the only type of incontinence. Some people, the nature of their incontinence is that they break wind a lot. They're always breaking wind to the point where they can't perform a valid salat without breaking wind in the middle of it. Or their incontinence is an incontinence of feces. They can't make a salat without a little piece of feces coming out. All of these are examples of what? Da'im al-hadath, someone who's perpetually breaking wudu. And the same can happen also with blood. Okay, it's possible that a woman might be bleeding from her front exit, and the blood is coming to the point where she cannot perform a salat without blood coming out. Okay, I'm not talking about a woman who's menstruating here. Okay, I'm talking about a woman who, this blood is not menstrual blood. It's not postpartum bleeding either. She's bleeding with a blood that does not cause her to miss the salat. She's bleeding with a blood that you would just wash away and then make wudu and pray. Okay, but the blood keeps coming out to the point where she cannot perform a salat. All of these are examples of someone who's da'im al-hadath, meaning they're perpetually breaking wudu. Okay, there are special rules for such a person. Let's read what he says. He says, for the one who suffers incontinence of urine or similar, meaning anyone who's da'im al-hadath, then the intention that person makes is for making the obligation of salat allowed. Okay, this is a very important point for any of you who have incontinence or know someone who has incontinence. The person who has incontinence or is perpetually breaking wudu, this person may not intend to lift ritual impurity, to lift hadath. This is not a valid intention for such a person. He may not intend to enter a state of purity for the sake of salat. He may not make those intentions because that's not what's going to happen. Okay, he knows that he's not going to enter a state of purity and be able to make a salat. He knows that. Okay, he knows that he's not going to be able to lift his ritual impurity long enough to make a salat. So he doesn't intend those things. Intending those things would only mean that if he breaks his wudu in the middle of the salat, that his salat would be broken. That's why he doesn't intend those things. Rather, what he intends is istibahatu as-salat. He intends permissibility of performing salat. This person, they're not making wudu to enter a state of purity. This person is making wudu just to make it permissible for him to perform the salat in his current state. He's in a state of incontinence. He can't make a salat without breaking wudu. So what does he do? He makes wudu so that he would be permitted, so that it would not be haram for him to pray in that condition. Okay, so then he goes and he makes salat. And there are more rules for the person who is incontinent. For example, the person who has incontinence, they cannot make their purification ahead of time. The person with incontinence waits until the prayer time is confirmed to be in. Then, after that, they go and they wash away any najasa that came out due to their incontinence or any other najasa that's there. They wash all of that. Then they block up the hole that the hadath would come from. So wherever the pee is coming from, or the poop is coming from, or the blood is coming from, or the gas is coming from, whichever outlet is the leak is coming from, you block it up. You block the outlet and you secure it. Okay, so for example, a woman who's incontinent might put some cotton in her vagina and then, put like a type of underwear or something that's very tight that will prevent the cotton from coming out, that will hold the cotton in place. They do that. And then they make wudu with the intention of making salat permissible for them. And then they pray immediately without delay. The person who's incontinent, that's what they do. They wait for the time to come in. They clean any najasa that's on them. They block up the hole that the najasa is coming from. They make wudu with the intention of permissibility of salat, and then they pray immediately without a delay. This is what's required for the one who has incontinence. When I say they pray immediately without a delay, I mean normally that's how it happens. But if they complete all of those things, how do I say this? They need to pray immediately without a delay after completing the wudu. But if they delay a short time for the sake of praying in a group, for praying in congregation, this is like excused. It still counts as them praying right away. If the only reason why they delayed was for the extra blessings of praying in jama'ah, for praying in congregation. But if that's not the reason why they're waiting, then the delay destroys their purification. If they delay and it's not for the purpose of getting a group together or waiting for a group to emerge, then he would need to go and do everything over again. He would need to go back, wash, block, make wudu again, and this time make their salat immediately. Okay. He says, for the one who suffers incontinence of urine or similar, then the intention is for making the obligation of salat allowed. What does they mean, making the obligation of salat allowed? What he means is making it allowed for you to perform your obligation of salat. That's what he's saying here. Then this next part of the paragraph, I think the translation makes it very confusing because he put a period and then said the one. Makes it seem like you're talking about a whole different person. They should have translated it by simply saying, and if he's making wudu for a recommended act, I would change the word reason to act here. So it says, and if he's making wudu for a recommended act, he should intend making the salat allowed. Okay, so we're still talking about the person with incontinence. All right, this last sentence is not a whole new topic. We're still talking about the one with incontinence. We're saying that this person with incontinence, okay, what intention does he make? Well, if he's making wudu so that he can pray an obligatory salat, his intention is that praying that obligatory salat would be permissible for him. And if he's making wudu for a sunnah salat, not an obligatory one, but for a sunnah salat, like say he wakes up in the middle of the night and he wants to pray tahajjud, okay, then he makes his wudu, and his intention would simply be istibahat salat. His intention would simply be that making salat would be permissible for him. Because he wouldn't say in his intention making obligatory salat permissible for him. No, because this one's not obligatory. He would simply intend that salat would be obligatory for him. Okay, this is the distinction between the one who's praying an obligatory salat and the one who's praying a sunnah salat. With that, we come to the end of the first obligation. The first obligation, which is what? Intention. Number two. Actually, let me read number one again because I made some changes to the text. I'm going to read it through one time so you can make sure you've updated the translation. It says, the first is the intention of lifting one's ritual impurity or the purification for salat or something like that at the time of washing one's face. For the one who suffers incontinence of urine or similar, then the intention is for making the obligation of salah allowed. And if he's making wudu for a recommended act, he should intend making the salah allowed. Number two, the second is to wash the face. So the second of the 6 things that you have to do for your wudu to count The second of the 6 things you have to do for your wudu to be valid is what? Washing the face. It says the limits of which are that between the hair of the head, the limits of which are that between where the hair of the head begins to grow and the front of one's chin. What he means by the front of the chin is that the lengthwise boundaries of the head are that your head begins at the place where a person's hair normally starts growing. Okay, so a normal person's hair starts growing right about here. Okay, we don't care, like if you have a receding hairline or you're going bald or something, it doesn't mean you need to start back from wherever your hair is actually starting from. No, the normal place where people's hair grows is from here, like where your forehead starts to bend the other way. So here is where you start. You need to wash everything from here all the way to the bottom of the chin. He says here, the front of the chin, but what he really means is you wash all the way to the bottom of the chin, but you don't have to wash the actual bottom. Like the part of the chin that's pointing, that's facing the floor, you don't have to wash that part. You just wash the part of the chin that's facing forwards. But you have to wash all the way to the bottom of the chin. All of the part that's facing forward, which means the very bottom of the chin, but the part that's facing forward, that's the part that needs to be washed in your salat. Or at least that's the lengthwise boundary. He says, and that between the 2 ears. The horizontal boundary of the face is what's between the 2 ears. So what we're saying here is that in order for your wudu to be valid, you have to wash everything from the normal hairline to the bottom of the chin and everything between the ears. Okay? Your ear, if you look carefully at your ear, there's a little like peg sticking out near the opening of the ear. This peg is part of your ear and it's not part of your face. Okay? Similarly, the peg on the other side is part of your ear. It's not part of your face. But everything between those 2 pegs is part of your face and has to be washed. So what that means is this bit of skin that's here in between the peg and the sideburns, this bit of skin is part of your face. You have to make sure you wash that when you make wudu. You must wash this because it's part of your face. It's between your ears. Everything that's from the normal hairline to the bottom of the chin and between the ears is your face. You have to wash all of that. Okay, and I'm going to remind you of a rule that exists in the Shafi'i school. It's a basic principle that's probably present in all of the madhabs. And that is that anything that you cannot fulfill your obligation without doing is also obligatory. How do I say that? If the only way you can fulfill an obligation is by doing some other thing, then that other thing is now obligatory. You get what I'm saying? If doing some other thing is required, if it's necessary for you to fulfill your obligation, then that other thing becomes an obligation as well. This is a principle. So what does that mean? It means when you wash your face, you don't wash only from the normal hairline to the bottom of the chin and between the ears. No. Because in order for you to be sure that you washed everything from the hairline to the bottom of the chin and between the ears, it's going to be necessary for you to wash a little bit past those boundaries. Because the only way you can be sure that you washed everything up to the boundary is if you actually go past the boundary a little bit. So when you wash the face, you want to start a little bit above the normal hairline. And you're going to wash all the way to the bottom, but you're going to also wash a little bit of the underside of the chin. Even though you don't have to wash the underside of the chin, you're going to wash a little bit of it anyway to make sure you got everything that's forward facing. And when it comes to washing side to side, when it comes to washing the horizontal dimension of the face, you're going to wash part of your ear. All right. To make sure you washed everything between the ears, You're going to wash a little bit of your ears in the process. That's how you know you got everything that needs to be washed. It says, this includes, okay, so when we're talking about washing everything from the hairline to the chin and from ear to ear, there's a lot of stuff on your face that needs to be washed. He says, may Allah have mercy on him. This includes the hair growing, he says, over one's forehead. I changed it to on. The hair growing on one's forehead. Okay? Because if we say over, it makes it seem like the hair that's like above the forehead. No, he's talking about if you're someone who has hair growing on their forehead, like there's hair growing here, then you have to wash that hair. We don't say, well, there's hair growing here, so therefore this is where his hairline starts, and he only washes from here down. No, the hairline, it goes by what's the normal hairline for a normal person. That's where your head starts. If someone has hair growing all the way down, halfway down his forehead, well, then the top half of his forehead, even if there's hair growing on it, still needs to be washed when washing one's face. Okay? He says, may Allah have mercy on him. This includes hair, the hair growing on one's forehead, the eyelashes also have to be washed, the eyebrows also have to be washed. Now, some copies of this text, Al-Muqaddimah Al-Hadramiyya, some copies right here, they add the word mustache. So they say you got to wash the hair growing on the forehead. You got to wash the eyelashes. You got to wash the eyebrows. You got to wash the mustache. So mustache is added in some copies, and I think, it's a good idea for you to add it. And then comes a part which is very confusing. And I think I know why the translator did this, but what the author, Al-Alama Bafadl, rahimahullah, what he said here is the sideburns. Okay, so he's saying the sideburns are among the things that you have to wash. All right, your sideburns, no matter how thick the hair is, you have to wash all of the hair and the skin at the base of the hairs. You got to wash all of it. Okay, in this part of the book, he's mentioning the things you have to make sure you wash because they're not excused. You got to wash hair growing on the forehead. You got to wash eyelashes, eyebrows, mustache, and you got to wash the sideburns, the hair that's growing on the side of your face here near your ear. It says, and the hair under the lower lip. That would be the hair that we call the soul patch. This hair that's here under the lip. This hair also, even if it's thick, it needs to be washed. It says all the skin and hair is to be washed, even if thick. So it doesn't matter how thick your eyebrows are, or how thick your eyelashes are, or how thick your mustache is, or how thick your soul patch is, or how thick your sideburns are. All of that has to be washed completely, meaning from the root of the hair and the skin around the root, all the way to the end of the hair, all of that has to be washed. And I remind you, the definition of washing is what? For water to be flowing over it. So the water needs to flow over the entire length of those hairs. All right, the water has to flow over the entire length of those hairs in order for your wudu to be valid. Now he's going to mention some other hairs whose ruling, these hairs he's about to mention have a special ruling. He says, as for the hair of the beard, he said, and the sideburns, but this is not where sideburns should be. Sideburns are up above. What it says in the Arabic here is, as for a lihya, the word lihya refers to hair growing on the chin. This is lihya, which he translated as beard. It's the hair growing on the chin. As for the hair of the lihya and the aridain is the hair growing along the jawbone. That would be this hair here, growing along your jawbone. Okay? the hair growing on the jawbone, like this lower part of your jaw that moves down when you talk, this hair that's growing here, this is the hair growing on the arid. So he says, as for the hair that's growing on the lihya, the hair of the lihya and the hair of the aridain, the hair growing on the jawbones, says, then if it is thin, both outward and inward need to be washed. So if the hair on a person's chin and jawbones is thin, what do we mean by thin? We mean that a person sitting at normal conversation distance away from you, if he looks at your face, he can see skin between the hairs of your beard or jawbone hairs. If a person of average sight sitting a normal distance away can see the skin between your hairs, then we say those hairs are thin. And if the hairs are thin, your obligation is then no different than the hairs for the rest of the face, than the hairs of the eyebrow or the sideburns. You have to make sure you wash the entire length of each and every hair, from the root to the tip, as well as any skin that's around the root. You have to wash all of it. That's what's meant by the outward and the inward need to be washed. It means the part in the front of the beard that everybody can see needs to be washed, but also the inside part needs to be washed as well. All of the hair need to be washed for their entire length. Then he says, if it is thick, one washes the outward only. Okay. And this, he says, if, however, the hair on the lihya, the hair growing on the chin, and the aridain, the hair growing on the jawbones, if that hair is thick, meaning a person of average sight sitting a normal conversation distance away cannot see the skin between those hairs. In that case, if you're a man, we're not talking about a woman right now. We're talking about someone who was clearly born a man. If someone was clearly born a man, then if the hair on his chin and jawbones are thick, then he has a special ruling which will allow him, when washing his face, to just wash the outside of the beard. He washes the part of the beard and the jawbone part of the beard. He just washes the outside of it, the part that faces other people. That's what he washes. As for the interior of it, he's not burdened with having to wash the interior and make sure the full length of every single hair got washed, because that would be a hardship on the one whose hair on the chin and jawbones are very thick. That would be a hardship. So there's a special ruling that applies only to men if the hair is very thick on the chin and the jawbones. If all three of these things are true, that's when the special rule kicks in. So we're talking about hair on the chin and jawbones only. And we're talking only if that hair is thick. And we're talking only if the person that has that thick hair is what? A man. Okay, someone born clearly a man. As for if the person is a woman, or if the person is of unknown sex, okay, sometimes a child is born what they call a hermaphrodite. Sometimes a child is born with what appears to be male sex organs and also what appears to be female sex organs. In this case, it's not always clear whether it's a boy or a girl. And sometimes it takes time to figure that out. Like you might need to wait to see which one the infant pees from. Okay, if it pees exclusively from the penis, then we say it's a boy. If it pees exclusively from the vagina, we say it's a girl. Okay, but every now and then you'll get a case where it pees from both. Like sometimes from this one, sometimes from that one. In this case, we still don't know if it's a boy or a girl. But in time, inshallah, you will start to see which one of these things is actually functional and which one is not. And then you determine based on what's functional, what the biological sex of the child is. So if we know that a person is male because they were obviously born male, or because they were a hermaphrodite and it became clear later that they actually are male, then these are the ones who, if their beard and jawbone hairs get thick, they can just wash the outside without needing to wash the inside. Everyone else, including women, including hermaphrodites where their sex has not yet become clear, including um, anybody, male, female, or hermaphrodite, whose hairs are not thick, everybody, all of those people, they have to do what? They have to wash the entirety of it. All the hairs from root to tip, as well as the skin around the roots. Insha'Allah, that's clear. Then he says, may Allah have mercy on him, it is recommended to interlace the thick beard with one's fingers from below. So after washing, the one with the thick beard, after washing his face and washing just the outside part of his beard, it's sunnah for him to take his fingers, which are still wet, and insert them into the beard from below. And stick your fingers through the beard like this, just so that, some water is reaching into the interior of the beard. Okay, but that's sunnah, it's not required. All right, that's not one of the 6 things which is required for your wudu to be valid. Rather, the second thing required for your wudu to be valid is what? That you wash everything from the normal hairline to the bottom of the chin and between the ears, making sure you go a little bit past those boundaries. And you wash everything on the face. That's what's required. And the special rule is what? If you're a man with thick hair going on the chin and the jawbones, then in that case, all you have to wash is the outside. And that's sufficient for your wudu to be, or at least for the washing of your face to be valid. I'm going to reread number 2 again to make sure everyone is up to date on the changes I've made to the translation. It says, the second is to wash the face, the limits of which are that between where the hair of the head begins to grow and the front of one's chin, and that between the 2 ears. This includes the hair growing on one's forehead, the eyelashes, eyebrows, mustache, the sideburns, and the hair under the lower lip. All the skin and hair is to be washed, even if thick. As for the hair of the beard and the jawline, then if it is thin, both outward and inward need to be washed. If it is thick, one washes the outward only. It is recommended to interlace the thick beard with one's fingers from below. Excellent. Number 3. The third, meaning the third of the 6 absolutely necessary integrals of the wudu. The third is to wash the arms, including the elbows, and what is on them. Okay, so when he says wash the arms, what he means is you're going to wash everything from the tips of the fingers all the way up to the elbow and including the elbow as well. So you need to wash all of that. Again, in order to be certain that you've washed everything that needs to be washed, you want to go past the elbow just a little bit to make sure you wash the entire elbow. Okay, and he says, including what is on them. So if you have anything on your arms, they have to be washed completely as well. So the hair on your arms needs to be washed from the root to the tip with the skin that's around the root. It doesn't matter how thick the hair on your arm is, you got to wash all of it. Okay? If you have anything else growing on your arm, like if you have an extra finger growing at the end of your hand, some people have 6 fingers on a hand, well, that needs to be washed too. Fingernails, those need to be washed too. Okay, if you have like a keloid scar or something, that needs to be washed too. Everything that's on your arm needs to be washed. Anything that's like a part of your body on your arm, it all needs to be washed. Okay, there are no exceptions here for, like the beard we said for the face. There's no special rule that will allow you to skip washing something. Yes, it's true. My neighbor's dog is making a lot of noise. There's kids playing over there. I apologize. what was I saying? Yeah, there's no rule that will allow you to not wash part of the hands, the forearms, and the elbow. However, I will mention that in the Shafi'i school, there is a difference of opinion about whether you need to wash under your fingernails. The strong saying is that you do need to wash under your fingernails, and so therefore, whatever dirt is there needs to be removed before you wash your hands. This is the strongest saying, but there are some mujtahid scholars within the madhab who said that this dirt that naturally builds up under your fingers, this dirt which is really just from your own sweat, this dirt does not block the water. And so therefore, in the course of washing the tips of your fingers, you're going to wash underneath the fingernails as well. And so you don't need to make a specific effort to wash under them. As opposed to the person who's, what they have underneath their fingernails is not something that's just natural. It's not the result of their own sweat, but rather it's because of some outside thing. Like say you work in a bakery, you've been kneading dough all day long and you have dough underneath your fingers. Well, then, yeah, you need to remove that dough. But if you just have the regular dirt that builds up just due to life, not because you've been sticking your hands in anything in particular, there is a saying that you don't need to remove that dirt when you make your wudu. Okay? So if you in the past made wudus without removing the dirt, don't panic. There's an opinion that clears you of what you did. But in the future, try to clean out your what's underneath your fingernails before you make your wudu. Okay, it's a good habit to get into, and it's the strongest saying in the madhab. And of course, we always want to cling to the strongest saying when we can. Number 4. The fourth, meaning the fourth of the 6 absolutely necessary parts of the wudu, the fourth is to wipe some of the skin of the head or the hair within its boundaries. So the fourth thing that you need to do for your wudu to be valid is you have to wipe somewhere in the head. It doesn't matter if the thing that you wiped was skin or if it was hair. It doesn't matter if you wiped the whole head or if you only wiped a little part of the head. Like if I put my finger under here and I just boop, doesn't matter how much of the head you wipe. What matters is that something wet touched something on the head part of your head. How do you know where your head is? Well, the head begins at the normal hairline. Okay, that normal hairline, that's the border between the face, which is below it, and the head, which is above it. Okay, your head goes from the normal hairline all the way back to, there's a little like knot in the back of your head. If you put your hand back there and feel around, you'll feel that there's a knot there. Okay, that knot, that is where your head ends. Everything that's below that knot is your neck. Everything that's above that knot is your head. So you have from the hairline back to that knot, you can wipe anywhere in that space. Okay, but you have to wipe something which is in that space. You have to wipe that area. Okay, it's not enough if you're, say, like a woman who has very long hair. The hair on her head is so long that she can grab like the edge of the hair down here and wipe down here. This does not count as wiping your head. Okay, it doesn't matter that the hair you're wiping on, that the root of it is way back up on your hair. The place you're wiping right now is not your head. All right, you need to wipe somewhere within the boundaries of the head is where you need to wipe. If you want to wipe that hair, wipe it up near the root. Don't wipe it down near the other end. Okay, make sure you wipe someplace within the boundary of the head, and it doesn't matter if you're wiping skin or hair. Number 5. The fifth is to wash the feet, including the ankles. And for some reason, he translated here to include any cracks, but the Arabic does not say anything about including here. It should say the fifth is to wash the feet, including the ankles and any cracks. Not to include any cracks, but just end any cracks. Okay, so the fifth integral, the fifth thing that you need to do for your wudu to be valid is that you need to wash your entire foot from the tips of the toes up to the ankle, and in fact, washing the ankle as well. And so what that means is you're going to wash a little bit past the ankle in order to make sure that you wash the entire ankle. And just like we said for the arms, you need to wash whatever is on your feet. So if you have hair growing on your feet, you got to wash that. If the hair is very, very thick, you got to wash all of it. You don't just wash, the top facing part. You wash all of it. Okay, if you have an extra toe, you wash it. You wash the toenails, and according to the strong opinion, what's under the toenails. Okay, if you have a keloid scar or something like that, you wash it. And he mentions here cracks. I don't know how many of you wear sandals a lot, but if you wear sandals all the time, especially in the summer when it gets hot, you'll find that your feet begin to crack. Cracks start to emerge, especially around the heel, but really they'll form all along the sole of the foot. If your foot starts cracking apart, you need to wash those cracks too. The water needs to get into the crack, okay, in order for your wudu to be valid, according to the strongest opinion. And number 6, the sixth and final obligatory aspect of wudu, it says, the sixth is to perform the above in sequence. In sequence. So the sixth and final thing you have to make sure you do for your wudu to be valid is you have to perform it in the order that was mentioned. So your wudu does not begin until the intention is there. Okay? And while the intention is there is when you first start washing your face. So those are at the same time. When you begin washing your face, the intention is present in the heart. After that, you finish washing your face. You wash the rest of your face. Okay? And then only after you've washed your entire face do you wash your arms. And only after you've washed both of your arms, up to and including the elbows, do you then wipe some part of your head. And only after you've wiped some part of your head, do you then wash your feet, up to and including the ankles. Okay? And only once that is done, do we say your wudu is valid. It has to be done in that order. Face before hands, hands before head, and head before feet. That's what's meant by the order. Then the author, may Allah have mercy on him, says, if one has a dip in water, what he means is if a person jumps into water, all right, jumps into and submerges himself in the water, so he's completely underwater, submerged, we say his wudu is valid. Okay, again, the translator here translated the word sahih as correct, which is the original meaning of the word sahih in the Arabic language. But when discussing Islamic law, the word sahih is better translated as valid. Okay, so he's saying that if a person submerges himself in water and then comes out of the water, if he made the intention, all right, if the intention was present while he was submerged, then he comes out of the water with wudu. Okay, meaning the moment he made that intention while he was submerged, he had wudu at that moment. It says, even if he doesn't remain there. Even if he doesn't remain there, what does that mean? It means when we say you have to do the parts of wudu in order, does that mean that if a person is submerged under the water, he needs to wash his face and then wash his arms and then wipe part of his head and then wipe part of his feet while he's submerged? No, he doesn't have to do all of that. because he's submerged. All right, all of that is getting washed anyway. Okay. But what if we say, okay, he's submerged, so he doesn't have to do all the wiping. But is it required for him to be submerged for a split second to say, and like say he's submerged for 1 second? Is it required to make the first split second of that 1 second to say to imagine, okay, now this is my face getting washed. And then the very next split second, now it's my arms getting washed. And then the next split second, now it's my head. And then the next split second, now it's my feet. And even though he was only underwater for like half a second, there was enough time for him to mentally conceive of an order to it. We're not even saying that's required. If he was submerged only for just 1 split second, it wasn't even long enough for him to imagine doing all of them in order. If he was submerged for just the tiniest split second and the intention was there for that split second, then he has wudu. Even if he was not underwater long enough to have washed the things in order, or even to have imagined them being washed in order, or even for him to just kind of assign a split second to one body part and a split second to another body part, even if he wasn't underwater long enough to even do that, his wudu is valid. He has wudu. Yeah, he has wudu in that case. Why? Because his body is completely submerged. All right, we're not talking about a case where the body is not completely submerged. We're talking about a case where someone goes into water and his body is completely underwater. And while his body was completely underwater, he had the intention of wudu. Boom, just like that, he has wudu. The amount of time that he's under the water is not relevant. And the last thing he says here at the top of page 6, he says continuity. What do they mean by continuity here? The word that they're using in Arabic here is muwalat. Muwalat means that you don't waste time in between doing one thing and the next thing. So muwalat means that after you wash your face, you start washing your hands before your face had time to dry. And after you're done washing your hands, you wipe your head before your hands had time to dry. And after you wipe your head, you start washing your feet before your head had time to dry. This is called muwalat, not wasting time in the middle of the wudu. Muwalat, as we'll see next week, inshallah, muwalat is one of the sunnahs of wudu. Ordinarily, this is something which is not required, but it's something that is recommended for you to do, to not waste time. But as you're about to see, for the person who is da'im al-hadath, the person who is perpetually breaking wudu, for that person, muwalat is an obligation. This person must refuse to waste any time in the middle of his wudu. Because if he wastes time in his wudu will not be valid. Just like if he wastes time between the wudu and performing the salat will not be valid. And neither will the wudu. Okay, the one who is perpetually breaking wudu is a special case. He's not allowed to waste time. Regular people, they are allowed to waste time, but it's recommended that they not waste time. So let's read what it says here. It says, continuity is obligatory for one who has continual ritual impurity. That's what I meant by the perpetually breaking wudu. Like the one with incontinence of urine, or incontinence of feces, or incontinence of gas, or incontinence of blood. Okay, these people, because they're constantly breaking wudu, they do not get to delay at all when making their wudu. And if they delay, they have to start over. Meaning they have to start everything over. They're going to have to then go clean themselves of najasa again, block up the hole again, secure the block again, make wudu again, and then immediately go pray. They don't get to waste time in between any of those steps. He says, may Allah have mercy on him, as well as maintaining the intention throughout the wudu. Okay, this last part about maintaining the intention, this is true for everybody. Okay, the way it's worded here, and in this case, even the original Arabic was a little bit ambiguous, but what it means is the one who has incontinence is not permitted to delay during their wudu. But everybody, including the ones who have incontinence and including the ones who do not have incontinence, everyone has to maintain their intention for the duration of the wudu. When I say maintain the intention, I don't mean they have to keep it at the top of their mind for the entire wudu. What I mean is they had the intention in their heart at the top of their mind when they first started washing their face. And then from that point until the end of the wudu, they did not do anything that would negate that intention. That's what's meant by maintaining the intention. Obviously, what's best is if you keep it at the forefront of your mind, that you're performing an act of worship lillahi ta'ala. You want to keep it at the front of your mind. This is what's best for you. But if, you started thinking about something else in the middle of your wudu, you started thinking about some incredible play you saw in the football game, or, you're happy that the Yankees lost the World Series or whatever, you start thinking about some other thing. And in the middle of your wudu, this is not going to cause your wudu to be broken. It's not going to cause your wudu to be invalid. This is okay. All right. What would break your wudu, what would be considered like not maintaining your intention, is if you did something to negate it. Such as if you break a wudu, like if you're in the middle of your wudu and you break wind. Okay, well, that negates your intention to lift hadath if you actually did hadath. Or like if in your heart you decide to stop making wudu. Like you made the intention to interrupt your wudu because you don't want to complete it. You don't want to finish. Okay, these would be examples of someone not maintaining their intention. Okay, we're not saying the intention has to stay at the front of your mind the whole time. It just has to be there when you first start washing the face. But for the rest of the wudu, you have to make sure you don't do anything that negates that initial intention, such as intending to stop the wudu, such as doing something that breaks wudu. Okay, we're not talking about something like talking. Okay, talking is disliked in the wudu, but just because you choose to talk to somebody, that doesn't negate your intention. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Insha'Allah, it is now clear exactly which 6 things in the wudu you have to do in order for your wudu to be valid. Next week, insha'Allah ta'ala, we will talk about some of the sunnahs of the wudu, some of the things that are not required for your wudu to be valid, but by doing them, you increase the reward for your wudu and you more perfectly follow the example of our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we definitely want to perform all of the sunnahs. Okay, we want to perform all of the sunnahs, but it's good for your own knowledge that you can distinguish between the parts that are actually obligatory and the parts that are actually optional. If anyone has a question, please drop it in the box. I'll get to it, insha'Allah ta'ala, now. So when I ask, how am I? I'm doing great, alhamdulillah. Today was a pretty good day, mashallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh to those who salamed me. May Allah reward you, Sister Tina. Ameen, ameen. May Allah cleanse your heart and grant you Firdaus al-A'la without any torture, sister. Here's a good question. Does wearing kohol or nail polish break wudu? No. Okay, neither of these things will break the wudu. However, I think the question you're really trying to ask is, do these things prevent you from performing a valid wudu? And the answer for kohol is no. Okay, if a person has kohol in their eyes, there's this will not prevent the water from washing the eyelashes and the eyelids. So kohol is not an issue. As for fingernail polish and toenail polish, then yes, a person cannot perform a valid wudu if they're wearing fingernail polish or toenail polish. That's because when they wash their fingers, the water will flow over the polish and it will not flow over the actual fingernail. So the fingernail itself, which is the place the water needs to flow on, the fingernail itself will not get any water flowing on it. Only the polish will be flowed upon. And so this is insufficient for the wudu to be valid. This is true for fingernail polish as well as toenail polish. I very strongly recommend that you just leave these things out. Okay, fingernail polish, it's not that important. Now, granted, this is just my opinion. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think a woman even looks better with it on. I don't think it improves appearance. I don't think the wearing of fingernail polish is even a tradition that began with Muslims. I think Muslims did it in imitation of kafirs, which is another reason to leave it out. And then there's the extra complication of your wudu is not being valid and your ghusl is not being valid. Like, it's a fitna. Okay, fingernail polish is a fitna. I strongly encourage everyone to leave it out. Okay, so someone asked, if you are submerged in bath water and the purity of the water changes, is the wudu valid? So I need to understand a few things here. How much water is there? And what do you mean by the purity changing? So if you are completely submerged in water, completely, and the water was pure and purifying at the time that you submerged, then you have wudu. As long as your intention was there, you have wudu. There's no other details to it. Doesn't really matter even how much water there is. Even if it was less than 2 qullas of water, if it was enough for you to be completely submerged, then if you had the intention, boom, you have wudu. But most people, their bathtub, if you're an adult, the bathtub is not big enough for you to be completely submerged in it. You kind of sit in it and the lower half of your body is submerged. And then if you bend your legs and stick your knees out of the water, you can kind of lower the top half of your body into it. This is not what we're talking about. You know, what we mentioned in the class today was being completely submerged. If you're only partially submerged, well then, you need to follow the normal rules. And if you're partially submerged in the tub, then remember, you need to wash your face first. So you can't begin the wudu until you submerge the top half of your body with your face in it. And you need to have the intention at that moment. And if the water is less than 2 qullas of water, well then as soon as you've washed your face by submerging it, well then the water in the bathtub has now become used water, and it's not going to lift impurity from your arms or your head or your feet after that, because it's used water now. However, if you have one of these huge bathtubs, that's like a small swimming pool, such that it holds 2 qullas of water, even with you in it, well then in that case, yeah, you can, wash each body part on its own while you're in the bathtub, and you would have wudu, or you can just submerge yourself and have wudu. There's one other case that possibly came up with your question when you said the purity changed. If you mean that the water became contaminated with najis filth, like say someone was in the pool and then they peed a little bit. I'm sorry, not the pool, they're in the bathtub and they peed a little bit. Well, then the water is now, assuming it's less than 2 qullas of water, the water is now contaminated and your body has been contaminated. So you're going to have to wash your whole body, and you certainly will not have wudu in that case. Someone asked, if you eat a food that made you gassy, is that considered incontinence? Um, it would only be considered incontinence if you're not able to make a salat without passing wind. Usually a person, even if they, if they ate, I don't know, something that makes you gassy, usually they can just, let out some gas, make a wudu, finish the salat, like say it's Maghrib, finish the 3 rak'ah salat. They can usually hold in their gas for the duration of the prayer. So this is not incontinence. Incontinence would be someone who's not able to prevent the thing from coming out. It's like it's going to come out. He can't stop it. And it comes out so frequently, he can't complete a salat in between cases of it coming out. That's normally not the case if someone just had, food. Mascara. I'm sorry, sister. I don't have an answer for mascara. I don't know exactly what it's made out of. But the general rule is if the water would not flow over whatever is below the mascara, then the mascara prevents the wudu from being valid. If, however, the water would reach what's below the mascara, then this would not harm the wudu. Sorry, I'm not an expert on makeup, but I always thought that you could just wash mascara off with water fairly easily. In the movies, if a lady cries, her mascara starts running. So I would think that this is not going to prevent the water from reaching your skin. It's very different than fingernail polish, where, fingernail polish needs special chemicals to remove. Water is not going to move it at all. Do you have to wash in between your toes? Yes. When you're making wudu, you have to make sure that the entire foot gets washed. Everything from the tips of the toes up to and including the ankle has to be washed. That includes what's between the toes. However, you don't have to rub. Okay, if you can just dip your feet into, I don't know, like say you make wudu at the bathtub. I'm learning that a lot of people don't do that. I always make wudu at the bathtub. It just seems easier to me, and it makes less of a mess. But if you turn on the water in the bathtub part, the bathtub faucet, you have water coming out. If you just stick your feet under there and just let the water flow all over your toes and what's between the toes, then it's washed. Now, I'm not recommending you do it that way because that does use a lot of water. But I'm saying, yes, you have to wash between the toes, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be rubbing between all of the toes with your fingers. There are other options. Someone asked about henna. Henna does not harm the wudu. Henna does not block the water from reaching your skin or your fingernails. So if you have henna on, you can still make wudu like that. Someone asked, do you have to be fully covered to make wudu? The wudu will still be valid even if you were naked when you made the wudu. Okay, as long as you did the 6 things we mentioned, your wudu is valid, even if you were naked. This does not mean it's permissible for you to be naked. Okay, what I'm saying is if you were naked and you had a valid intention and you washed your face the right way and you washed your arms the right way and you wiped some part of your head the right way and you washed your feet the right way and you did it in that order, then your wudu is valid. Okay, but in the Sharia, a Muslim is not permitted to uncover their awra without a reason, without a valid reason. And making wudu is not a valid reason to uncover one's awra. Okay, it's not a valid reason. But if you uncovered your awra in order to take a shower, for example, which is a valid reason to uncover the awra, and you decided that while you're in the shower, you're going to go ahead and make the wudu, well then in this case, this is no problem. It's someone asked, do you have to put your foot in the sink or can you just wipe over the feet? You have to wash your feet. That means the water has to flow over every part of your foot that needs to be washed. Okay, so everything from the top of the ankle all the way down to the tips of your toes, the water has to flow over all of that. So simply wiping is not sufficient. No, it is not sufficient. However, if you don't mind making a mess on the floor, it's possible to wash your foot without putting your foot in the sink. Okay, as long as the water flows over the foot, then your wudu is valid. Okay, if you have a hard time lifting your foot up to the sink, then you can go over to the bathtub. I find it very easy to make wudu in the bathtub. I can sit on the side of the tub because it's sunnah to be in a seating position or sitting position, seated. There's the word I'm looking for. It's sunnah to be in a seated position when making wudu. So I can sit on the edge of the bathtub and I have my whole body in a place where any water that drips off of me, it's going to, go down the drain. I don't need to worry about making a mess around my sink. I don't need to worry about the water going to the back of the sink and harming the caulk that holds the sink to the wall. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I don't need to worry about making a mess on the floor. I don't understand why more people don't make wudu in the bathtub. And certainly if you're someone who has a hard time lifting their foot up to the bathroom sink, well, it should be easy to get your foot into the tub. I'm not saying you fill up the whole bathtub with water. I'm saying, you can turn on the faucet and put your foot under the faucet to wash your feet. Or you can get a little bucket. I have a small bucket that I use to make my wudu in the bathtub. I don't use the bathtub because of the bath faucet. I use it just because I don't mess up the bathroom as much. Can you perform wudu in the shower? Sister, you can perform wudu in any location. There's no special place to make wudu. Rather, there's special things you have to do. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you are on a boat. Okay, if you had the intention and you washed your face and you washed your hands and you wiped your head and you washed your feet and you did it in that order, then you made wudu, even if you're on a boat. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're outside, with a garden hose. Doesn't matter if you're in a bathroom or if you're in a kitchen. It doesn't matter if you're on a street corner with a bottle of water. You pour some water in your hand and you pour some more water and, doesn't matter where you are when you make wudu. And wudu will be valid no matter where you are as long as you've done the 6 things we talked about today. However, sisters, obviously, if you're in public, you cannot uncover your body. You can't show your aura in public. So if you want to make wudu outside, you need to, go around behind a bush or something to a place where no one will see you. Because you're going to have to lift up your sleeve for the sake of washing your arms. You're going to have to lift up you're going to have to uncover your feet for the sake of washing your feet and your ankles. As far as your hair is concerned, you don't necessarily have to remove your hijab because you can fit a finger under there and wipe part of your head. But you might need to scoot your hijab back a bit to make sure you wash your whole face. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm no expert on makeup. I don't actually know what mascara is made of or how it works. So if there is now water resistant mascara, then I don't know what to tell you other than to clarify what the rule is. Okay, what you can do is maybe you could just put some mascara on your arm, pour some water so the water flows over the mascara. Okay, and then peel back the mascara and see if the skin under the mascara is still dry. If the water that flowed on top of the mascara did not hit the skin that's beneath the mascara, then that means the mascara is blocking the water and your wudu is not valid while you're wearing it. However, if the mascara does not block the water from reaching your skin, then your wudu is valid even while you're wearing it. So in the wudu, someone's asking, can you hold water in a paper towel or a washcloth? How you hold the water is not the thing that you need to be concerned with. What you need to be concerned with is, are you washing what needs to be washed? And are you wiping what needs to be wiped? In the wudu, the head only needs to be wiped. So what that means is, as long as you touched it with something damp, like as long as your finger wasn't bone dry and you put your finger up there and you touched your head, then that means you wiped your head. That's all that's required. So yes, a wet paper towel or a wet rag, if you touch your head with it, I mean, not this thing, but if you take your, not wearing any head wrap or head garment, if you touch your head with something wet, then that counts as wiping the head. However, the other parts of the wudu, washing the face, wiping is not sufficient. You have to wash. Washing the arms, wiping is not sufficient. You have to wash. Washing the feet, wiping is not sufficient. You have to wash. Face, arms, and feet have to be washed. And what's the difference between washing and wiping? It's the amount of water. Okay, in order for something to be considered washing, the water has to be flowing. So it has to be enough water that the water flows. Okay, the water by itself, like if you poured some water on your arm and then tilted your arm down, the water would flow. Okay, it needs to be enough water for it to flow. That's what matters. And every part of your arm or face or foot needs to have water flow over it. Every part of your arm, face, and foot needs to have water flow over top of it. That's what's required for your wudu to be valid. Now, what you do in order to get the water to flow doesn't really matter. Yes, it's possible for you to get a rag. Like if the rag is really full of water and you squeeze it, it's possible that so much water will come onto your arm that it'll flow, like it'll flow. And then you can push it all around to the places it needs to go. And you can wash your arm with water that you squeeze out of a rag. Yes, that's possible. Okay, it's not necessarily true that you need to put your hand in a bucket and then pour the water. It's not necessarily true you need to turn on a faucet and stick your hand under the faucet. There's many ways to get it done. What matters is, did the water flow over everything that it needs to flow over? I appreciate the questions. You know, I was a little bit sad, mashallah, when I asked for questions and there were no questions. You know, but mashallah, they started coming in at the end. Please don't be shy. These things matter a lot. They matter a lot. You know, sometimes there might be some question you want to ask and you decide not to ask. And then you continue with your life not knowing that answer. And then you find out years later that you should have done things differently during all of that time. Okay, just ask the question. It's fine. Okay, this is what we're here for. You know, all of us who went overseas and studied, you know, we did it so that we could be a resource when we return. So that people who have questions, if we know the answers, we'll give it. Okay, so ask the questions. So someone asked about making wudu in the shower after you've been in the shower for a while. Okay. The amount of time that you've been in the shower is not relevant. All that matters is, are you currently, do you have ritual impurity on your body currently? If the answer is yes, you have ritual impurity, well then you need to make wudu. You can make wudu in the shower. You can make wudu outside of the shower. Okay, like where you make wudu doesn't matter. So if a person has been in the shower for 20 minutes, water just, you know, Say, I don't know, they had a special hair treatment they were doing, took 20 minutes. Okay. Well, if after taking the shower, if they still need to make wudu, then they make wudu. If they want to do it in the shower, they can. If they want to dry off and get out the shower and then make their wudu at the sink, they can do that. But at the end of the shower, the question is, do they still need to make a wudu? And usually the answer is yes. Most people in the course of, we haven't talked yet about the things that break wudu, but most people in the course of taking a shower, they will break their wudu. Even if they had wudu when they got in the shower, they will usually break it in the course of the shower because they touch their private parts at some point during the shower. And, if you touch the private parts with the inside part of your hand, then that breaks your wudu. And so once they do that, they're now going to need to make another wudu. So normally that's what happens. Someone asks, if you don't have a shower and you need to make a ghusl, how would you do it? With a bucket. It's not that hard. There was a time when I was living overseas when water was scarce, and like if you turned on the faucet, nothing would come out. We didn't have water, so what did we do? We used buckets. I had a container of water. I'd pour a little bit in the bucket. I'd pour it on myself. I'd rub it in, and I'd try to wash as much of my body as I can. Then I'd pour some more water and wash a little bit more. This is how the Prophet did it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took 4 of these, sometimes 5. He poured on his body and, pushed the water around until it flowed over everything that needed to be flowed over. He didn't have a shower. He didn't have a bathtub either. What matters is the water. The water has to flow over your body. Where you do it is insignificant. Someone said, it seems that one would be making wudu all day long. Why would a person be making wudu all day long? A wudu takes 2 minutes. For you to do a very simple wudu, like the most basic, most minimal wudu, you just wash your face, which takes seconds with an intention. You wash this arm, which takes seconds. You wash this arm, which takes seconds. You wipe some part of your head, which takes 2 seconds. Then you wash your feet, which takes, however long. Like the whole thing is done in 2, maybe 3 minutes. Well, there are only 4 things that break wudu. So if someone says there's so many things that break wudu, there's only 4 things that break wudu. Okay, I know many people who make wudu in the morning to pray Fajr, and they pray all their salats on that one wudu. They don't have to make wudu again at all. I also know many people who will make a wudu for Fajr. They'll make another wudu for Dhuhr, and that wudu, they'll keep it all the way until they pray Isha. Like you don't break wudu a lot. Some people break wudu a lot. A lot of it depends on age. A lot of it depends on health. A lot of it depends on diet. Like how much are you eating? How much are you drinking? But I don't find that people break wudu a lot unless they have some kind of special condition or, they're eating and drinking things that make them break wudu a lot. It happens. Some foods, as we mentioned earlier, some foods will make you gassy. Okay, if you drink a lot of water, then you're going to pee a lot. If you eat a lot of food, you're going to poop a lot. If you have a job where you're touching people of the opposite sex all the time, well, then, yeah, you're going to break wudu a lot. It depends on what you eat, your health level, and the kind of things you do. But I don't think a person would need to make wudu a whole lot of times. By the way, it's sunnah and recommended to make a wudu for each obligatory salat. So whether you're breaking wudu or not, like there's no harm in making a wudu for each one of the 5 obligatory prayers. And if you did that, you would only be making wudu, what, 5 times a day? Maybe 6 if you pray during the night. It's not a lot of wudus in the course of a day. Yes, using the restroom does break wudu, but that. So if you want to be an excellent Muslim keeps wudu at all times. So when they break wudu, they make wudu. And I definitely encourage you to do that. But there are some people who know that they're not going to pray for a while. You know, they get to work at 9 a.m., they go to the bathroom at 10 a.m. And they know that Dhuhr time doesn't even start until 1 p.m. And they know they have from 1 p.m. all the way until 4:30 to pray Dhuhr. And so they know when they went to the bathroom at 10 a.m. that they're not even going to pray until like 4 o'clock. Maybe they don't feel the need to make wudu at 10. Maybe they're just going to wait because they're probably going to go to the bathroom again in the afternoon. And maybe after that time going to the bathroom is when they make their wudu. And with that wudu, they can pray Dhuhr and Asr, maybe even Maghrib. You know, it all depends on the person. Yes, if you touch a person of the opposite sex skin to skin, it doesn't matter if it was intentional or by mistake, both of you lose your wudu. Yes, there is a difference of opinion between the madhabs about wiping over cotton socks, but I don't know the details for how to do it in whichever madhab allows it. So if you intend to wipe over cotton socks, then I strongly suggest that you learn whichever madhab permits that and learn the details of how to make wudu in that madhab. But personally, I don't see what the big deal is. People always ask me about wiping on socks. They act like it's so hard to wash your feet. Okay, it's not that hard to wash your feet. Okay, again, unless you're someone that has like, you know, a special condition where it's hard for you to lift your foot up to the sink, and you're in a place where, you know, the sink is the only place where you can wash your feet. In that case, I might understand. But just wash your feet, man. It's not that hard. You know, one of my sheikhs, may Allah have mercy on him, he lived to be more than 100 years old. And this is a man who endured incredible hardships. Like, he was so poor that there were times when the only food he had is just like the grasses that grow wild, like the things that goats would eat. You know, so that's what he ate. You know, he went stretches where he did not have even a whole lot of access to water. You know, may Allah have mercy on him. But he said that for his entire life, he never once wiped on khufs. And he did a lot of travels for the sake of knowledge. And much of that travel he did walking. And he never once wiped on khufs. You know, it's really not hard to wash your feet. I think people are making like a really big deal out of this. And it's not something that merits a big deal. But when we get to the chapter about khufs, we'll talk in more detail here. If you're a person who is just, you know, not courageous enough to wash your feet in the work bathroom, then just wear boots. You know, wear boots. You can wipe on boots. You can't wipe on cotton socks. But if you wear boots and leave them on the whole day and never take them off, you can wipe on the boots. And more details are coming when we get to that chapter. If you're in a public restroom, yes, sometimes the floor in a public restroom isn't the cleanest. Inshallah, you have enough balance. You know, what I do in those situations is, you know, I pull out my foot, I wash it, and I put it down on top of whatever I was wearing. Shoes, sandals, whatever it was I had on. I just put the foot on top of that rather than putting it directly on the floor. Do I find it easier to practice there versus here? I do find it easier to practice there, but only in some respects. Uh, so what I miss about being overseas is the convenience of certain things. You know, there's so many masajid that you never have far to go to make salat. The adhans are going. So you know when salat time comes in. Frequently, the one calling the adhan is trustworthy, so you can trust that the time is actually in. You can go into whichever place is nearby, make your salat, and then go on about your business. It's convenient. You know, if you wash your foot in the sink, everybody knows what you're doing. Nobody looks at you crazy. You know, in those ways, it's convenient and easy. But in other ways, it's harder. In other ways, it's harder over there because some people have gotten complacent with their Islam. They don't practice the way that they should, and it's become normalized. So when you meet someone who's actually practicing properly, you seem like a weirdo, and you'll even get resistance. You know, there are Muslim countries where if you're a man and you refuse to shake hands with a woman, they'll look at you like you're some kind of extremist. They'll look at you like you're, you know, like some of them might even be mad at you. Some of them might even like yell at you. In some cases, like parents might even kick a child out of the house for not shaking hands with a woman because they've become like, I don't know. You know, or like if you tell a woman she needs to wear a hijab, in some countries they will resist you for that. They'll like push back and act like you're the weird one for saying something like that. Or if you tell someone they need to make salat, hey, salat time is in. It's about to go out and you haven't prayed yet. Go pray. You know, sometimes they will take that badly. Food. You know, here in America, if I say to someone, you know, I'm Muslim, I don't eat that. They respect that. They say, oh, okay, that's your religion. And they back off because they don't want to mess with somebody's religion. You go to a Muslim country and you say, oh, I don't eat that. Then yeah, they want to criticize you. They say, what are you talking about? I eat it. I'm like, yeah, well, I care about what I eat because I don't want to go to Jahannam, you know, but you eat whatever you want to eat, right? You know, they'll take it as like an insult if, say, for example, if you don't eat McDonald's or you don't eat KFC, but they do eat it. So now it's like by you avoiding it, it's almost like you're in a backhanded way calling them bad Muslims. You know, so they'll push back, they'll resist, and they'll criticize you and pressure you to eat it. And all told, like if you summarize everything, I would say it's easier to be a Muslim in the US. It's just less convenient. Whereas over there, like things are convenient, but there's a lot of pressures there that you don't face here. Here in the US, for example, if you work at a job, they probably don't even call it a Christmas party anymore. Mostly all of these businesses have called it, you know, either a holiday party or an end of year party or something like that, because they want to be respectful of religious diversity. You go to some of these Arab countries and the business says, we're having a Christmas party and we're putting up a Christmas tree and we're having a fake Santa Claus and we're doing a secret Santa gift exchange. And if you don't participate, you know, they'll like threaten to fire you or you'll be punished if you don't participate in these, you know, un-Islamic things. Like that would never happen in the US, but it happens over there. You know, so it's just a different set of challenges. But I think the challenges here are easy to surmount. Over there, it's not always easy. And the funny thing is they want to argue with you about it. They don't even know what Christmas is, you know? Like if you tell them Christmas is like a Christian religious, a Christian religious observance, they say, no, it's not. It's just fun. I'm like, well, I mean, y'all don't really know anything about Christianity, but I grew up in a Christian country, grew up in a Christian family, was Christian myself for a big part of my life. I know what Christmas really is, but they don't want to hear it from me because they like, I don't know how to put it. They feel good by participating in something that comes from the West, because in a lot of these countries, they really admire Western civilization and want to adopt as many Western practices as possible, because to them, that's progress. And if you're telling them not to adopt Western practices and instead stick to Muslim traditions, it's like the reverse of what they were taught their whole life. And that cognitive dissonance can sometimes, rub people the wrong way. Well, obviously, I always think the best of Muslims. Someone asked, with the surge of African Americans becoming Muslim, do I think it's authentic or just a trend? I don't think it's just a trend. And of course, whenever I see someone take Shahada, I'm going to believe in my heart that it's sincere. Like, why would I look at a Muslim and automatically assume something bad about them? No, as Muslims, we don't look down on one another. We like to think good thoughts about one another. So if I see a Muslim and I don't have any evidence to the contrary, I'm going to think something good about them, something positive about them. Okay, this is how we ought to be. MashaAllah. I try to keep these lessons to 1 hour. We're past an hour and a half. MashaAllah. Well, if there are no more questions, let's say La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. Someone asked about whether there's a physical bookstore at Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City. Unfortunately, I'm not the proper one to answer that question. But, they have events from time to time. And very frequently at their events, there are people selling books. So I encourage you to come to the events and purchase books. And if not, you can drop this same question at the Post-Fajr Reflections tomorrow, inshallah. I'm sure he'll answer. Other than that, may Allah preserve you all. May Allah protect you and grant you ease in your affairs. And may Allah make all of us better Muslims, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.